This is the audiobook of your Class 10th English book, Chapter number 9, Madam Rides the Bus by Wally Kannan. Before you read, in this sensitive story, an 8-year-old girl's first bus journey into the world outside her village is also her induction into the mystery of life and death. She sees the gap between our knowing that there is death and our understanding of it. Activity: first, look at the words and phrases given below, then put a tick against the ones you think you will find in the text. First, a set of passengers, get off the bus, tickets please, a row of seats, blowing a whistle, get on the bus, platform, a roar and a rattle, slowing down to a crawl. Second, you must have traveled by bus more than once. What can you see from a fast-moving bus? Given below are some suggestions. Speak briefly about some of these scenes or about other such scenes that you have seen, or write a sentence or two about them. Rivers, green fields, hills, roadside shops, marketplaces, railway tracks, moving trains, vehicles on the road, trees, a crowd, clothes in shops, animals. Now we shall start with the chapter. The first section is: There was a girl named Williamine, who was called Wally for short. She was 8 years old and very curious about things. Her favorite pastime was standing in the front doorway of her house, watching what was happening in the street outside. There were no playmates of her own age on her street, and this was about all she had to do. But for Wally, standing at the front door was every bit as enjoyable as any of the elaborate games other children played. Watching the street gave her many new unusual experiences. The most fascinating thing of all was the bus that traveled between her village and the nearest town. It passed through her street each hour, once going to the town and once coming back. The sight of the bus, filled each time with a new set of passengers, was a source of unending joy for Wally. Day after day, she watched the bus, and gradually a tiny wish crept into her head and grew there. She wanted to ride on that bus, even if just once. This wish became stronger and stronger, until it was an overwhelming desire. Wally would stare wistfully at the people who got on or off the bus when it stopped at the street corner. Their faces would kindle in her longings, dreams, and hopes. If one of her friends happened to ride the bus and tried to describe the sights of the town to her, Wally would be too jealous to listen and would shout in English, "Proud? Proud?" Neither she nor her friends could really understand the meaning of the word, but they used it often as a slang expression of disapproval. Over many days and months, Wally listened carefully to conversations between her neighbors and people who regularly used the bus, and she also asked a few discreet questions here and there. This way, she picked up very small details about the bus journey. The town was 6 miles from her village. The fare was 30 paise one way, which is almost nothing at all, she heard one well-dressed man say, but to Wally, who scarcely saw that much money from one month to the next, it seemed a fortune. The trip to the town took 45 minutes. On reaching town, if she stayed in her seat and paid another 30 paise, she could return home on the same bus. This meant that she could take the 1 o'clock afternoon bus, reach town at 1:45, and be back home by about 2:45. On and on went her thoughts as she calculated and recalculated and planned and replanned. Oral comprehension check. What was Wally's favorite pastime? Question number 2. What was the source of unending joy for Wally? What was her strongest desire? Question number 3. What did Wally find out about the bus journey? How did she find out these details? 4th. What do you think Wally was planning to do? Second part. Well, one fine spring day, the afternoon bus was just on the point of leaving the village and turning into the main highway when a small voice was heard shouting, "Stop the bus! Stop the bus! and a tiny hand was raised commandingly. The bus slowed down to a crawl, and the conductor, sticking his head out the door, said, "Hurry then, tell whoever it is to come quickly." "It's me," shouted Wally. "I'm the one who has to get on." By now the bus had come to a stop, and the conductor said, "Oh, really? You don't say so?" "Yes, I simply have to go to town," said Wally, still standing outside the bus. "And here's my money." She showed him some coins. Okay, but first you must get on the bus," said the conductor, and he stretched out a hand to help her up. "Never mind," she said. "I can get on by myself. You don't have to help me." The conductor was a jolly sort, fond of joking. "Oh, please don't be angry with me, my fine madam," he said. "Here, have a seat right up there in front. Everybody move aside, please. Make way for madam." It was the slack time of the day, and there were only 6 or 7 passengers on the bus. They were all looking at Wally and laughing with the conductor. Wally was overcome with shyness. Avoiding everyone's eyes, he walked quickly to an empty seat and sat down. "May we start now, madam?" the conductor asked, smiling. Then he blew his whistle twice, and the bus moved forward with a roar. It was a new bus, its outside painted a gleaming white with some green strips along the sides. Inside, the overhead bars shone like silver. Directly in front of Wally, above the windshield, there was a beautiful clock. The seats were soft and luxurious. Wally devoured everything with her eyes, but when she started to look outside, she found her view cut off by a canvas blind that covered the lower part of her window. So she stood up on the seat and peered over the blind. The bus was now going along the bank of a canal. The road was very narrow. On one side there was the canal, and beyond it, palm trees, grassland, distant mountains, and the blue, blue sky. On the other side was a deep ditch, and then acres and acres of green fields. Green, 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 as far as the eye could see. Oh, it was all so wonderful! Suddenly, she was startled by a voice. "Listen, child," said the voice. "You shouldn't stand like that. Sit down." Sitting down, she looked to see who had spoken. It was an elderly man who had honestly been concerned for her, but she was annoyed by his attention. "There's nobody here who's a child," she said haughtily. "I've paid my 30 paise like everyone else." The conductor chimed in. "Oh, sir, but this is a very grown-up madam. Do you think a mere girl could pay her own fare and travel to the city all alone?" Wally shot an angry glance at the conductor and said, "I'm not a madam. Please remember that, and you have not yet given me my ticket." "I remember," the conductor said, mimicking her tone. Everyone laughed, and gradually Wally too joined in the laughter. The conductor punched a ticket and handed it to her. "Just sit back and make yourself comfortable. Why should you stand when you have paid for the seat?" "Because I want to," she answered, standing up again. "But if you stand on the seat, you may fall and hurt yourself when the bus makes a sharp turn or hits a bump. That's why we want you to sit down, child." "I'm not a child, I tell you," she said irritably. "I'm 8 years old." Of course, how stupid of me. 8 years, my. The bus stopped, some new passengers got on, and the conductor got busy for a time. Afraid of losing her seat, Wally finally sat down. An elderly woman came and sat beside her. "Are you all alone, dear?" she asked Wally as the bus started again. Wally found the woman absolutely repulsive. Such big holes she had in her earlobes, and such ugly earrings in them. And she could smell the betel nut the woman was chewing and see the betel juice that was threatening to spill over her lips at any moment. Ugh, who could be sociable with such a person? "Yes, I'm traveling alone," she answered curtly. "And I've got a ticket too." "Yes, she's on her way to town," said the conductor with a 30 paise ticket. "Oh, why don't you mind your own business?" said Wally. But she laughed all the same, and the conductor laughed too. But the old woman went on with her drivel. "Is it proper for such a young person to travel alone? Do you know exactly where you're going in town? What's the street? What's the house number? "You need not bother about me. I can take care of myself," said Wally, turning her face towards the window and staring out. Oral comprehension check. First, why does the conductor call Wally Madam? Second, why does Wally stand up on the seat? What does she see now? Third, what does Wally tell the elderly man when he calls her a child? Fourth, why didn't Wally want to make friends with the elderly woman? Third part, her first journey. What careful, painstaking, elaborate plans she had to make for it. She had thriftily saved whatever stray coins came her way, resisting every temptation to buy peppermints, toys, balloons, and the like, and finally she had saved a total of 60 paise. How difficult it had been, particularly that day the village fair, but she had resolutely stifled a strong desire to ride the merry-go-round, even though she had the money. After she had enough money saved, her next problem was how to slip out of the house without her mother's knowledge. But she managed this without too much difficulty. Every day after lunch, her mother would nap from about 1 to 4 or so. Wally always used these hours for her excursions, as she stood looking out from the doorway of her house, or sometimes even ventured out into the village. Today, these same hours could be used for her first excursion outside the village. The bus rolled on, now cutting across a bare landscape, now rushing through a tiny hamlet or past an old wayside shop. Sometimes the bus seemed on the point of gobbling up another vehicle that was coming towards them, or a pedestrian crossing the road. But lo, somehow it passed on smoothly, leaving all obstacles safely behind. Trees came running towards them, but then stopped as the bus reached them, and simply stood there helpless for a moment by the side of the road before rushing away in the other direction. Suddenly, Wally clapped her hands with glee. A young cow, tail high in the air, was running very fast, right in the middle of the road, right in front of the bus. The bus slowed down to a crawl, and the driver sounded his horn loudly again and again. But the more he honked, the more frightened the animal became, and the faster it galloped, always right in front of the bus. Somehow, this was very funny to Wally. She laughed and laughed until there were tears in her eyes. "Hey, laddie, haven't you laughed enough?" called the conductor. "Better save some for tomorrow." At last, the cow moved off the road, and soon the bus came to a railroad crossing. A speck of a train could be seen in the distance, growing bigger and bigger as it drew nearer. Then it rushed past the crossing gate with a tremendous roar and rattle, shaking the bus. Then the bus went on and passed the train station. From there it traversed a busy, well-laid-out shopping street and turning, entered a wider thoroughfare. Such a big, bright-looking shops, what glittering displays of clothes and other merchandise. Such big crowds. Struck dumb with wonder, Wally gaped at everything. Then the bus stopped and everyone got off except Wally. "Hey, lady," said the conductor, "aren't you ready to get off? This is as far as your 30 paise takes you." "No," Wally said. "I'm going back on the same bus." She took another 30 paise from her pocket and handed the coins to the conductor. "Why, is something the matter?" "No, nothing's the matter. I just feel like having a bus ride, that's all." "Don't you want to have a look at the sights now that you're here?" "All by myself? Oh, I'd be much too afraid." Greatly amused by the girl's way of speaking, the conductor said, "But you weren't afraid to come in the bus?" "Nothing to be afraid of about that," she answered. "Well then, why not go to that stall over there and have something to drink?" "Nothing to be afraid of about that either." "Oh, no, I couldn't do that." "Well then, let me bring you a cold drink." "No, I don't have enough money. Just give me my ticket, that's all." "It will be my treat and not cost you anything." "No, no," she said firmly. "Please, no." The conductor shrugged, and they waited until it was time for the bus to begin the return journey. Again there weren't many passengers. Oral comprehension check. How did Wally save up money for her first journey? Was it easy for her? What did Wally see on her way that made her laugh? Third, why didn't she get off the bus at the bus station? Fourth, Why didn't Wally want to go to the stall and have a drink? What does this tell you about her? Fourth part. Won't your mother be looking for you? The conductor asked when he gave the girl her ticket. No, no one will be looking for me, she said. The bus started and again there were the same wonderful sights. Wally wasn't bored in the slightest and greeted everything with the same excitement she had felt the first time. But suddenly she saw a young cow lying dead by the roadside, just where it had been struck by some fast-moving vehicle. Isn't that the same cow that ran in front of the bus on a trip to town? She asked the conductor. The conductor nodded, and she was overcome with sadness. What had been a lovable, beautiful creature just a while ago had now suddenly lost its charm and its life and looked so horrible, so frightening as it lay there, legs prodigaled and fixed there in its lifeless eyes, blood all over. The bus moved on. The memory of the dead cow haunted her, dampening her enthusiasm. She no longer wanted to look out of the window. She sat thus, glued to her seat, until the bus reached the village at 3:40. She stood up and stretched herself. Then she turned to the conductor and said, "Well, sir, I hope to see you again." "Okay, madam," he answered her, smiling. "Whenever you feel like a bus ride, come and join us, and don't forget to bring your fare." She laughed and jumped down from the bus. Then away she went, running straight for home. When she entered her house, she found her mother awake and talking to one of Wally's aunts, the one from South Street. This aunt was a real chatterbox, never closing her mouth once she started talking. "And where have you been?" said her aunt when Wally came in. She spoke very casually, not expecting a reply. So Wally just smiled and her mother and aunt went on with their conversation. "Yes, you were right," her mother said. "So many things in our midst and in the world outside. How can we possibly know about everything? And even when we do know about something, we often can't understand it completely, can we?" "Oh, yes," breathed Wally. "What?" asked her mother. "What's that you say?" "Oh," said Wally, "I was just agreeing with what you said about things happening without our knowledge." "Just a chit of a girl she is," said her aunt. "And yet look how she pokes her nose into our conversation, just as though she were a grown lady." Wally smiled to herself. She didn't want them to understand her smile, but then there wasn't much chance of that, was there? Translated from the Tamil by K. Sundaraman, illustrated by R.K. Lakshman. We have finished reading the first part of the chapter 9. Now in the second part we have a poem, The Tale of Custard the Dragon. Let's read it. This poem is written in the style of a ballad, a song or poem that tells a story. You must be familiar with ballads that narrate tales of courage or heroism. This poem is a humorous ballad close to a parody. Read it aloud, paying attention to the rhythm. Belinda lived in a little white house with a little black kitten and a little gray mouse, and a little yellow dog and a little red wagon, and a really truly little pet dragon. Now the name of the little black kitten was Ink, and the little gray mouse, she called him Blink, and the little yellow dog was sharp as mustard. But the dragon was coward, and she called him Custard. Custard the dragon had big sharp teeth, and spikes on top of him, and scales underneath, mouth like a fireplace, chimney for a nose, and really truly daggers on his toes. Belinda was as brave as a barrel full of bears, and Ink and Blink chased lions down the stairs. Mustard was as brave as a tiger in a rage, but Custard cried for a nice safe cage. Belinda tickled him, she tickled him unmerciful. Ink, Blink, and Mustard, they rudely called him Percival. They all sat laughing in the little red wagon at the really truly cowardly dragon. Belinda giggled till she shook the house, and Blink said "Weak," which is giggling for a mouse. Ink and Mustard rudely asked his age, when Custard cried for a nice safe cage. Suddenly they heard a nasty sound, and Mustard growled, and they all looked around. "Mewch!" cried Ink, and "Oh!" cried Belinda, for there was a pirate climbing in the window. Pistol in his left hand, pistol in his right, and he held in his teeth a cutlass bright. His beard was black, one leg was wood. It was clear that the pirate meant no good. Belinda paled, and she cried, "Help! Help!" But Mustard fled with a terrified yelp. Ink trickled down to the bottom of the household, and little Mouse blinked strategically mousehold. But up jumped Custard, snorting like an engine, clashed his tail like irons in a dungeon. With a clatter and a clang and a jangling squirm, he went at the pirate like a robin at a worm. The pirate gaped at Belinda's dragon, and gulped some grog from his pocket flagon. He fired 2 bullets, but they didn't hit, and Custard gobbled him every bit. Belinda embraced him, Mustard licked him. No one mourned for his pirate victim. Ink and Blink in glee did gyre around the dragon that ate the pirate. But presently up spoke little dog Mustard. "I had have been twice as brave if I hadn't been flustered." And up spoke Ink and up spoke Blink. "We had have been 3 times as brave, we think." And Custard said, "I quite agree that everybody is braver than me. Belinda still lives in her little white house, with her little black kitten and her little grey mouse, and her little yellow dog and her little red wagon, and her really truly little pet dragon. Belinda is as brave as a barrel full of bears, and Ink and Blink chase lions down the stairs. Mustard is as brave as a tiger in a rage, but Custard keeps crying for a nice safe cage." Ogden Nash. We're also done with the chapter 9. Goodbye till next time.